Is it really that hard to be a landlord? If you're anything like me, I've learned stuff the hard way. Over the last 25 years as a landlord, I made my share of mistakes. And I'm going to share with you today the top 7 mistakes slash blunders slash screw ups that I made to hopefully you don't have to. So without further ado, let's chat with Chado. Cool. So the first one that I want to put out there is don't be Mr. Nice Guy. Being Mr. Nice Guy got me pretty good multiple times. One of the examples that I want to run over with you. I had a property that I picked up, and I had tenants in that property at $1,200 a month. Okay, cool. Things are going along. Things are going along, and they start to get behind. So me being Mr. Nice Guy, oh man, they're already struggling. I can't raise the rent on them. They're struggling. So I never raised the rent. Okay, cool, Mr. Nice Guy. Then they're struggling. They're struggling. So they're not making their monthly payment. They're paying the best they can. I'm getting payments every single week, but coming up anywhere between 900 and $1,000 a month, short of the $1,200 a month that their rent is. So that being said, they were getting further and further and further behind. That's not even including late fees, right? Because they're so far behind, they're getting a late fee every month. So again, I'm Mr. Nice Guy, and I'm just kind of letting things go, and I'm not filing that eviction. And of course, eventually, it gets to the point I got to do an eviction. So we go through the eviction process, and it's actually pretty easy because they owed a lot of money. They couldn't get caught up, and it was a pretty open and shut case. The issue is because I was being Mr. Nice Guy, they didn't want to upset the apple cart. They didn't want to let me know about issues with the property. There were issues there that were deferred maintenance that needed to get handled. And when they finally were evicted and moved out, there was a lot of repairs that need to get made, and things that just got worse and became bigger repairs because they weren't addressed because they were too afraid to let me know because I was being nice to them and not putting any type of eviction proceeding and giving them the ability to pay slow. So I got hit in multiple regards. Number one, like I said, I rented it for $1,200 a month, and by the time I evicted them, the going rent for that type of unit would probably be closer to $1,800 a month. So I was $600 below market rent. Number one. Number two, I had a bunch of deferred maintenance and repairs that became more costly than they should have been because they weren't reporting them. And I lost a lot of money in the amount of time that the whole process took, right? Just getting that less amount of rent all those years and not even getting all the rent, just the amount of money they were behind, that was all a loss. So that was a huge lesson, is don't be Mr. Nice Guy. Number two is going to be verify local rules. It's extremely important to know when you're buying a property that even though it has 2 units, even though there's 2 water meters, 2 gas, I'm not usually 1 water meter, but 2 gas meters, 2 electrical meters, 2 entrances, it may not be a 2-family. People do things. I actually had a property that I was looking at and I was going to purchase it, and back in the 70s, they made it into a 4-unit. It was a 2-unit and registered with the city as a 2-unit. And I go to purchase it, and it's a 4-unit. And the numbers made sense as a 4-unit, but if the city would have found out after I purchased it that it never got converted properly, I would have had a huge out-of-pocket expense. So I got lucky on that one. And that being said, right, and there's another property I purchased where I made the mistake of same thing, verifying local rules and regulations. I purchased a property that was a rooming house. It had 5 rooms rented at $400 each. That's $2,000 a month, plus an apartment, I think it's $600. So this property was bringing in $2,600 a month in rent. So that seemed like a no-brainer. It seemed like a great deal, especially because I bought it. Luckily, I bought it as if it would be just a single family, and it would cash flow with single family rent, which at the time was probably about $1,400. So long story short, I purchased the property. I go down to register the property with the city, and I'm registering it, and marking down that it's a boarding house and all this other stuff, or rooming house. And of course they're like, no, 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 hold on a second. And they pull up paperwork and, oh yeah, we were suing this guy and we had all these summons out against him because he was running a legal rooming house. And like, oh, okay. So that ended up costing me a bit of money because I had to evict and get all the tenants out of there and turn it back into a single family. Luckily, I purchased it at the right price and I was able to weather that storm, but I should have verified. I probably would have been a little bit more diligent if I was paying more for the property, but it was a good deal, so I just went and purchased it. But you always want to verify. You don't want to buy a house thinking it's a 2-unit or a 3-unit and find out it's not. Number 3, I'm going to put out there. Number 3 is professionally working your work orders. Make sure you do all your work orders professionally. So number 1 is sometimes when tenants are in eviction status or not paying, they can use it against you with the city if you don't make repairs. So just because somebody's not paying rent doesn't mean you're going to ignore no heat call or other issues with the property, because they're just going to call the city, and then the city's going to send you to court, and you have to do a summons and all this other drama because you didn't handle the work order professionally. So it's important that you handle your work orders professionally, despite the fact that the tenants may or may not be paying rent. Paying of rent is a completely separate thing that goes through an eviction process, but you want to make sure your property is taken care of. So I'm going to give you a specific example. I had a property where we had converted the property and put a new heating system in. The heating system needed to get done, and part of it not being professional, it was done professionally and it was done correctly, but we never had a chance to get the permits done. It was kind of it's a heater. We kind of just needed to get it done quickly, but we never followed up and got the permits. So because of that, once a year or two later, I think it was 2 or 3 years later, so it kind of fell off our radar. The tenant decides that they're upset that we're filing an eviction, and of course they call the city. And the city comes down and comes and they inspect the whole property. And while they're in there, oh, look at this new heater. There was never permits pulled for this. So then we end up with a court summons. We end up going down to court and all the drama associated with going to court to pay a $300 fee on the summons. And we got it done. We got the permits and everything done after the fact and got it handled. But it's like that would have all been avoided if we just handled it professionally up front and got it done. So just make sure you do all your work orders in a professional manner. Another big mistake, this is number 4. Number 4 is having the mindset that, oh, this is a rental, where I'm not going to make this property as nice as I would if I was going to flip it because it's a rental and they're not going to take care of it anyway. Well, it's not a good thing. If you have a tenant who is well qualified, the tenant has good credit, good income, and they're looking for a property in your town, and they have 3 to 4, 5 properties to choose from, they are the most qualified. They're going to choose your property if your property is the best. If you have the granite countertops, we put granite countertops in all of our properties. We put a nice kitchen, a nice bath. We don't go over top, but we make things real nice. We don't leave old bustified windows. We have all new windows. We don't leave old broken windows, wooden windows. We put new vinyl double pane windows. We do the flooring. No carpet. We do vinyl plank flooring throughout. We make the properties look nice, and we do a good job on our turnover so that we can attract a better tenant. I made this mistake on a property where we got this property, and it was 100 plus years old, and there was a row house, and it had one heater in the basement, and the ductwork was non-existent. There was one huge 2-foot by 3-foot vent in the floor of the living room, and all the heat went through that one vent. So the rest of in order to get up to the second floor and into the bedrooms, they had little pass-throughs in the ceiling to the floor. But that heat had to rise up. They didn't have individual heaters in each room. And while I was able to pass my inspection and while I was able to get it rented, the tenant that I put in there was not the best. So I could have done a better job on screening, but I probably would have better choices if my property didn't have issues like that. So, I learned the hard way on that one. They were since evicted. That became a whole big thing, a story for another day. But make sure you present and put together a product that is just above and beyond what everybody else has. Don't go crazy, but you want to have a nice product. So that's number 4, is thinking renovations are good enough. Number 5 is not having enough reserves. Things happen and things happen quick. If all of a sudden you have a heater that goes in the middle of the winter, you can't say, oh, I'll do that in a couple months when I have the money. You have to do it now. If, for example, a water heater goes, you can't leave your tenants without water. You need to replace that now. If a tenant moves out and there's $10, $15, $20,000 plus in work that needs to get done to get the next tenant in, like, you need to do that as soon as possible. You can't wait for that money. So you need to make sure that you are liquid and or have access to capital if something does happen. Because if you leave that property, either don't take care of the tenants, they're not going to take care of you. Number 1, like I said, you got to act professionally in your work orders. And then number 2, if that property sits vacant because you can't afford to turn it over, you're not just losing the $15,000 to $20,000 it would cost to renovate it. You're losing that $1,500 a month in income, and you're still paying taxes and you're still paying the mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. So you got to make sure you have reserves. You can't operate without reserves. Number 6, I'm going to give you number 6 now. Number 6 is don't rent to a friend. It's probably pretty obvious, and if you ask anybody, should you rent to a friend, they're probably going to say no. And I rented to a friend, and that turned out to be a huge, massive mistake. So I rented to a friend. Because of that, I gave him a good deal on rent. So I was charging way less in rent than I should have, number 1. Number 2, the previous people moved out, and there was some work that was needed. Nothing major, but like all stuff that he would be able to handle. And like, okay, I'm giving you a deal on the rent. You can handle all this little stuff that needs to get handled, so now I don't have to worry about a turnover. Didn't handle most of it, of course. Fast forward, of course, he gets behind in his rent. Eventually led to an eviction. And my man, little did I know, was a hoarder. So when I finally got possession of the property, it's completely fooled, completely destroyed. While I did a lot of capital improvements, the turnover was ridiculously expensive. All the floors throughout the property were destroyed. There's just stuff everywhere, inside the house, outside the house, dumpsters and dumpsters of stuff. It was just disgusting, and it just was a huge turnover, and it was all because I didn't vet them. And I didn't vet them because they were a friend. And if it's a friend, it's a lot harder to not be Mr. Nice Guy. So there's a lot of multiple ways to look at it. So don't rent to a friend. That's number 6. And lastly, I'm going to give you number 7 is a bonus. It's a bonus. I call it a bonus. Number 7 is you need to be organized. It's absolutely imperative that you're organized. That came back to bite me, at least in one case, where there was a property that I sold. And upon selling the property, I went to the city, I got a CO, I did everything I was supposed to do, and they give you a little piece of paper, your certificate of occupancy, and I don't know where it went. I have no idea where it is. Cool. 5 years later, the guys that moved into the property were an absolute mess. Everybody in the neighborhood was getting all upset. They're calling the city. The city goes back and does a little research, and they find out, they're like, you never got a CO when you sold it. So of course they send me a ticket in the mail, summons to go to court. I go, of course, look through my paperwork. I'm looking through old files. I can't find it anywhere. So not having that led me to a position where I had a court summons. I had to go to court. The fee, $300 fee sucks, but is what it is. And how many times did I have to go to court for that one? It was multiple. It was completely crazy the amount of times I had to get on the court and spend a whole day wasted doing that. So it was a huge, it was a huge loss in that regard. And just if I would have been organized, if I would have gotten that piece of paper and scanned it in, I would have been, I would have been all set. So I would have been able, documentation is so important. And figure out a system. I have a whole system around being organized now and scanning files in and making sure they're named properly and knowing where they are. And that's something that's very important for you to put together if you're going to be a real estate investor. Document, document, document. That being said, hopefully this was of value. If you're still here now after over 15 minutes, awesome. Thank you very much. Obviously, entertaining or at least worth listening to. If you think so, apparently the algorithm says like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. And hey, go down in the comments and let me know like what mistakes you've made and what lessons you've learned. And let's have a conversation down in the comments. So without further ado, have a great day.